Today I am reviewing summarizing chapter 6 of Coercion and its fallout by Murray Sidman. This chapter was about escape, and it kind of covered a lot of things. The first way it started off was with two questions. Essentially, when we are looking at behavior, we want to know, what did the individual do? So essentially identifying the behavior, followed by what happened next. And we want to be able to identify the consequences of that particular behavior. And then the author went to talk about contingency analysts and what we do in the contingency analyst. And so when they were doing that, they were talking about how they identify the behavior and the consequences. We want to be able to analyze that so that we can determine what that is. Then from what we've seen, we want to determine how we want to alter the consequences to see if that will then in turn change behavior. And as we're doing all of that, it's essentially an active procedure. So we are constantly taking data to ensure that whatever we're putting in place, we are seeing that it's working, and we have data to support that. And if the data does not support that it's working, then we need to determine or alter the consequences as need be to present the desired behavior. The chapter then kind of continues to talk about the analysis of the contingencies and how it can help us understand troublesome conduct and to find a solution. So essentially what I just said, where, we want to be able to identify the behavior and alter the consequences to determine if behavior will change. An example they gave us is that attention can be a positive reinforcer for a child. When a child is doing something that's expected and we want them to do that and we provide them attention, then the child's consequences would be attention and their behaviors thus improving because they're getting that attention. The author then goes into speak a little more about negative reinforcement. This chapter talks a lot about negative reinforcement and negative punishment and how they can correlate to generating escape. Typically, an individual will do whatever they can to remove a negative reinforcer or punishment. We don't tend to like to lose something or something happen to us. So if it is encountered, then an individual will do whatever has worked before. So I touch a hot burning stove and the consequence is that I burn my hand, I remove my hand. Now I know that I'm going to try to escape that by not touching a hot hot stove, sorry. So negative reinforcement can also be used as a punisher. They are kind of, depending how they're used, irreversible. They have the same events but function in different ways. Negative reinforcer makes an action more likely, and punishment, it makes an action less likely. So that's what the differences are. Negative reinforcement most likely will encourage that individual to continue to do that, where a punishment will make an individual not want to do that. Punishment is used to reduce undesired conduct, but can increase the likelihood of other behavior. And punishment is ingrained in our interactions, and we don't always realize that we're using it. So sometimes it just happens and we're not aware. So it's very important to kind of be aware of what we're doing, especially when we're practicing. One of the biggest headings was learning through escape, and the way they talked about that was like presenting negative reinforcers while giving the subject an escape route. So an example that they kind of gave of this where it was like a negative reinforcer and a positive reinforcer together, was that a rat was being shocked through the floor. And as the rat was shocked, the rat eventually learned to press the lever to stop the shocking. The rat quickly caught on that the sooner that the lever was pressed, the shock was removed. So that kind of provided an example of negative reinforcement and positive reinforcement being used together. The text also mentioned that the rat was the rat was being coerced by negative reinforcement because the rat did not want to be injured or to be shocked. Then that rat proceeded with the lever pressing. So its environment caused him or encouraged him to press the lever to remove that stimuli that was inflicting pain or discomfort. The rat experiment leaves one to question whether negative reinforcement teaches effectively, and this would depend on the analyst. Like, what did the subject actually learn? So when you're looking at the experiment or whatever was put in place, you want to think about what did they learn and what contingencies were put in place. So did they teach other things? So in the instance of the rat learned that if I press the lever, I'm no longer going to be shocked, lessening that discomfort or pain. What contingencies were put in place? The shock as well as the lever removing that stimuli once pressed. Positive and negative reinforcement can effectively teach what the contingencies specify, but they can also teach other things. And that's what makes them different. Positive reinforcement lets one to be free to indulge their curiosity and to try new options. It doesn't really have a negative impact on them. They get to try new things, and if they like it and explore their curiosity, there's no negative or harmful components to positive reinforcement, where negative reinforcement kind of leaves a narrow behavioral repertoire, and that can leave someone feeling fearful of something new and afraid to explore. If I'm in a cage and I'm being shocked, the next cage I'm put in, I may be fearful due to being in a previous cage that did that, so I might be anticipating that kind of discomfort or pain again. The text mentions side effects that can come with negative reinforcement. One is that it can restrict the interest of others, causing tunnel vision, where it's going to keep them from trying new things. It'll keep one from trying anything that strays from the stress put onto them. So, kind of keeping them focused one way. I can only do this. They don't think they can do anything else. The other one can cause things in individuals to become a negative reinforcer. So like things that are in your life can become negative reinforcers from your experiences. So like different settings, if you were in a place where you experienced a negative reinforcer multiple times, then that might be an environment you don't want to go to. So some teachers, and this is just to give one outside of the text, and hopefully I'm using it correctly, but some teachers will leave teaching to escape hostile environments. Prisoners escape jail, soldiers desert from the army, and the text gave a lot more different examples. Control by negative reinforcement can make the environment coercive. So like any physical or social element of a setting where we are enforced by turning off or getting away from something painful, fearsome or repugnant, becomes itself a place or a person to be escaped from. So that can then make it environmental coercion, causing us to want to get away. So, time goes by fast. Negative reinforcement and punishment. They are closely related to one another, and that's why it's important that we understand the difference. Events that are negative reinforcers at one time can be punishers at another time. The role is to determine their relation to how one acts, as well as those who control us coercively can use the same events as punishers to stop one from doing what they were doing, or as a negative reinforcer to make us do something to escape. So it's kind of important to know the differences. So the question I want to leave everyone with is, can you think of a time where you used punishment or negative reinforcement? Now that you have, can you think of how it could be used in the opposite situation? For example, if you have a negative reinforcement scenario, share how that could have been a negative punishment or vice versa. Just kind of how the text kind of talked about it. I can't wait to read your responses.